You opened your phone this morning. Maybe it was before you even got out of bed, and at some point you saw something about AI. A tool, a headline, a video, a post. Someone showing what it can do now. And for just a second before you scrolled past it, something happened inside you. It wasn't panic, it wasn't anger. It was something quieter than that. Something that felt almost like standing at the edge of a very tall building and looking down. Not falling, just looking. You kept scrolling, you moved on, but that feeling didn't fully go away, did it? That is what this video is about. Not about whether AI will take your job, not about which tools you should learn, not about being optimistic or pessimistic about the future. Everyone is already having that conversation, and honestly, it is missing the point entirely. This is about something older, something wired into you before you ever touched a smartphone, before the internet existed, before language itself. This is about what your brain actually does when it encounters something it cannot categorize, and why AI specifically is triggering one of the deepest fear responses in human psychology. The uncomfortable part is this. The fear has almost nothing to do with the technology. It has everything to do with you. Your brain has one job, not thinking, not feeling, not loving or creating or dreaming. One job, keeping you alive long enough to pass on your genes. Everything else is a bonus. And to do that job, your brain became the most sophisticated pattern recognition machine in the known universe. It does not see the world as it is. It sees the world as a series of categories: known things, unknown things, safe things, threatening things. This is not a flaw, this is the feature. When your ancestors walked through tall grass and heard a rustle, they did not stop to philosophize about what kind of animal might be nearby. Their brain had already decided: unknown, fast, potentially dangerous, move now. The people who paused to think more carefully about it did not survive long enough to become your ancestors. So here you are, walking around with a brain that was built for a very different world. A brain that is desperately, constantly trying to categorize everything it sees. Every person you meet, every situation you enter, your brain is already running its database. Have I seen this before? What happened last time? Is this safe? When it finds a match, you feel nothing. That is the feeling of normal, of calm. Your brain uses almost no energy when it recognizes something familiar. But when it cannot find a match, that is when things get interesting. Psychologists call it the uncanny valley in some contexts, but the deeper term, the one that explains the specific unease you feel around AI, is ontological threat. Ontological, from the Greek meaning the nature of being itself. A threat not to your body, not to your job, a threat to your categories, to your understanding of what things are. Here's the problem with AI. Your brain is trying to put it somewhere, in a category. Is it a tool, like a calculator, a hammer? Those are safe. Tools do not have opinions. Tools do not write poetry that makes you cry. Tools do not pass medical exams. Tools do not have conversations that feel uncomfortably real at 2 in the morning when you're lonely, and you know rationally that there is no one on the other end. And yet, okay, not a tool then. Is it a person? Your brain actually starts reaching for this one because it talks like a person. It responds like a person. It remembers what you said earlier in the conversation. It adapts. It explains. It apologizes. It even has something that functions like a personality. But it is not a person, and some part of your brain knows that. It knows there is no heartbeat, no fear, no hunger, no history of a childhood or a broken relationship or a Tuesday afternoon where everything just felt gray. So, which category does AI go in? The answer is none of them, and that's exactly why your brain is scared. When the human brain encounters something that fits no category, no prior experience, no evolutionary template, it does not simply say, "Interesting, I'll make a new folder." What it does instead is trigger a low-grade, persistent alarm. Not the loud alarm of seeing a snake, the quiet alarm of hearing a sound in a dark house and not knowing what it was. You can't unhear it, you can't make it stop by ignoring it. The only way the alarm goes off is if you either find an explanation or you leave the situation entirely. But with AI, you can't leave. It's everywhere. It's in your email client. It's in your search results. It's in your word processor. It's in the apps your kids use. It's in your workplace, whether you chose it or not. So the alarm stays on, quietly, constantly, under everything. Here's where it gets more personal. There is something specific about AI that goes beyond just unknown thing. It's not the way we feel about a new kind of bacteria or a new financial instrument or even climate change. Those things are threatening, but they don't threaten something very particular, the story you tell about yourself. Humans are the only animals that build their identity around their capabilities. You are not just a person who does a job. You are someone who thinks well, who writes with a certain voice, who solves problems in a certain way, who brings something to the room that no one else quite brings. Even if you've never said this out loud, you believe it. You have to. We all do. It's how we get out of bed. Now, here comes a system that can think, that can write, that can solve problems, that can generate in seconds what took you hours. And it doesn't get tired. It doesn't have bad days. It doesn't doubt itself at 2 in the morning. Your brain does not process this as a technological development. It processes it as a social threat. Because the part of the brain that handles identity and self-worth, the part that tracks your status in a group, is one of the oldest, most sensitive, most loudly defended parts of the entire system. A study from Stanford, published in 2023, found that when people were shown examples of AI outperforming them on tasks they considered central to their identity, their cortisol levels, the stress hormone, spiked significantly more than when they were outperformed by humans. Let that sit for a moment. Being beaten by AI felt more threatening to the body than being beaten by a person. Why? Because when another human beats you, your brain can tell a story. They practiced more, they got lucky, they had advantages. You can find the thread of your own worth and hold on to it. When AI beats you, the story collapses, because AI has no advantages in the human sense. It didn't practice, it didn't sacrifice, it doesn't have a backstory you can compare yourself to and find your own value in. It simply did the thing, faster, more completely, without effort. And your brain, the ancient story-protecting machine, goes quiet in a very uncomfortable way. Here's the conversation that's not happening. When we talk about AI and humans, we almost always frame it as a skills conversation. Who can do what jobs will exist, what to learn, how to adapt. And those are real questions worth asking. But underneath it all is a question that feels too large to say out loud. If AI can do the things I do, what am I for? That's not a practical question. It's a philosophical one, an existential one. And it's the question your brain is actually processing even when you think you're worrying about job security or technological change. Throughout human history, we've never had to ask this question in quite this way. We've always been the smartest things in the room, not because we were designed to be, but because nothing else was close. Our intelligence, our creativity, our ability to connect ideas and solve novel problems, that was the thing we had that nothing else had. That was the foundation underneath all the other foundations. And now there's something in the room that might be smarter, or might become smarter, or is already smarter at certain things that we cared about very much. This is not a fear of losing a job. This is a fear of losing the reason we thought we mattered. And the reason this fear is so quiet, so low grade, so persistent, is that we don't have language for it yet. So the fear sits there, unnamed, categorized incorrectly as worry about automation or productivity or the future of work, when really it's much older and much deeper than any of that. I want to be honest with you here. I'm not going to tell you there's a 5-step process. I'm not going to tell you if you just learn to use the right tools, the feeling will go away. It probably won't, not entirely, and that might actually be okay. Discomfort is often the beginning of something. The feeling your brain generates when it cannot categorize something is not just an alarm, it's also an invitation to look more carefully, to think at a level deeper than comfort allows. The people who are navigating this moment best aren't the ones who have resolved the fear. They're the ones who have stopped trying to make it go away by answering the wrong question.
They're not asking, what do I do to stay relevant? They're asking something harder and more interesting. What do I actually value about being human, and how do I live closer to that? Because here's what AI can't do. Not because of some gap that will be closed eventually, but because of something structural about what it is. It cannot want, not in the way you want. It cannot choose meaning. It cannot lay awake at night because something it cares about is at risk. It cannot love a person more than is rational. It cannot make a decision that goes against its own interests because it promised someone it would. It cannot create something that means something to it specifically in the context of a life it has actually lived.
These are not small things. These are the things that make human existence something other than computation. You opened your phone this morning, you saw something about AI, and for a second, something in you felt that quiet vertigo. Maybe now you know a little more about what that was. It was not fear of the future. It was not fear of unemployment. It was your brain trying to file something that has no file, trying to protect a story about yourself that it does not know how to update yet. The story is not over, but it is being rewritten. And maybe the most human thing you can do right now, in this exact moment in history, is to decide who holds the pen.